Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another why we play the game, I guess, or why we think about not playing the game. Sorry, sort of an inside joke. I've been dungeon mastering for a long time, but one thing I haven't been dungeon mastering for a long time has been the quality of players or the experience players that I've been playing with lately. By lately, I mean the last 4 or 5 years since I started playing online, playing with almost exclusively people who've got a fair amount of dungeon mastering experience, and I think that's literally where this phenomenon comes from or stems from, because they're, having been dungeon masters, they know what can be thrown at players, and they know what they might do if they were the dungeon master in the same position, all in the misguided premise of making the game more challenging, when what we should really be focusing on is making the game more fun. I just saw a little clip from Max Liao and Kevin Simbita from Palladium, where he's quoted as saying, a long time ago, that if everybody's having fun, you're doing it right, even if you're not playing by the rules, 100%. And of course, you guys know my number one rule is the afterword of the Dungeon Master's Guide. If you don't know that, go ahead and check it out. It's like in the afterword. It's in the very latter section of the book, in the appendices or after the appendices, stating basically that it's your game as the DM, it's your world. Don't be chained to the rules. Of course, Gary would go back later and recant most of that, wanting people to play strictly by his rules, more or less. And even that story is, not necessarily 100% accurate. But the more I play with really experienced players, the more I run into this habit I call player paranoia, and I am certain that I'm not the only one who calls it that, because it seems to be a pretty wide phenomenon. The players that have the endless trap, ambush checklist, never being able to trust any NPC, always thinking that the DM's up to something, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And it drains so much of the fun out of it for me as a GM, and for lots of other players at the table. I can see the eye rolls and all of that. Spending valuable, precious minutes at the table. Remember, guys, we've only got 2 or 3, maybe if we're lucky, 4 hours. It's not the 8-hour, 12-hour weekend-long sessions we used to play. We've got to speed things up. We've got to squeeze as much fun out of the limited time we have online as we can, and not trusting your GM, or assuming that every NPC is out to get you, assuming that every door is trapped, and I'm going to go into an article or a video about traps later, because they drive me freaking insane. Don't get me wrong, I love thieves, but next video, next week, I'll make a note of it. But it denies you the ability as a player to ever have any meaningful relationships with anyone but the players themselves, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. You are supposed to be able to trust people, and you are supposed to be able to make friendships and romances and relationships beyond just the 5, 6, however many people at the table. And even then, half the time you don't even like those guys. So, what kind of life would that really be for your character, living a life like that, especially if you're a good character? You should trust people. You should look for friends amongst these NPCs that the GM might just pull out of his ass, but he very well might have written up pages and pages on why this guy is, like, really cool, and maybe you'd like to have them as a pal. You deny yourself and everybody else that possibility, and you turn it into an adventure game, or a therapy session in the making, because you cannot, you know, trust anybody, and everything is out to get you. It's not that way, especially at the lower levels in the beginning of a campaign, where you're trying to, or you should be, in my opinion, trying to develop an attachment to something besides your own skin and your own next level. That drives me insane when you're in like a first level dungeon and every single door has got to be checked for traps, and every hallway, every stairway, every room is out to get you. When, you know, sure, it's a dungeon and it's dangerous, etc., but it's not up to 11 on the amplifier. It's at a 1 or a 2, just like you. Everything should be, you know, kind of fair, and you're thinking, you know, like you're going into what the hell was that dungeon? Tomb of Horrors, when you're going into, you know, Joe Schmo's freaking, you know, basement that just so happens to, you know, lead into a small goblin or rat warren, and you know, nobody does, you know, fill their lair, their home, with traps that, you know, on a drunken Friday night could kill them because they forgot where the button was to turn it all off. It shouldn't be like that, and you're missing out, and it's exhausting, and it leads to the wild conspiracies and the whole metagaming the game, where your characters don't know the things you know as a player. Your characters have never maybe been in a dungeon or never fought a this or a that, and they don't know these things. But you, as the player, you stick to that, you know, experience of, you know, the 100 characters you've run in the past, and once upon a time there was a trap under a barrel, so you're going to check under every barrel, kind of thing, carefully. And no, your characters wouldn't know that stuff. You're metagaming, and you're you know, you're sucking the life out of the time that your friends and you have at the table. I'm not saying go into everything blind. That would be, you know, a bad choice of advice for me to give. But think about it. Would your character even know to check? If you've never even come across a trap as a non-thief character, you probably wouldn't be thinking that every other thing is trapped. Even your first level thief needs to learn a few lessons. I know that you're saying, well, yeah, I can't learn if I'm dead. Yeah, but your character can't know what they know, what you know as a player. Remember that. That's got to be crucial to actual role playing. Otherwise, you're playing a strategy, adventure, war game, and then it's, you know, all about winning. And, you know, if we're playing certain games, I get it. You know, like Dungeons and Dragons, quote unquote, Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D, etc. But a lot of other games are not meant to be played like that. They're not. You don't know these things as a character. You don't. So try to remember that, and try not to suck the life out of the game by being overly paranoid. You know, every once in a while, it's okay to get a pie in the face, or you know, a couple of arrows stuck in you, or poison darts. You know, at first level, if you die, you make up a new character. You know, and you know, maybe have a character ready in case you do die, but you don't need to be playing, you know, on, like I said, ratchet it up to 11. That's what I've got for you this morning. I'll be back with you know, a video on traps and why I hate them as a DM. And remember, the DM isn't out to kill you. And if he is, get a new DM. He's out there to provide a challenge, but it's not a challenge if you have no chance of actually overcoming it. And if you're going to be so hyper focused on doing all those things, you're never really going to get anywhere in the long run. You're wasting valuable time that you could be, you know, fighting the monsters. You know, that's you know, where it seems most of the players I meet, that's all they really want to do is fight the monsters. Well, if you're too busy checking for traps, you don't fight the monsters. And if you set off a trap and it happens to be an alarm trap, there's more monsters for you, right? Anyways, have a great weekend, guys. I love you. I will see some of you tonight. I'll see some of you tomorrow. For those of you under the weather and things like that, I hope you get well soon. Everybody else, you're all still in my prayers. Love you guys. Happy trail.